As one of the only locally owned businesses in Albuquerque, Gala Chevrolet understands the importance of giving back to our community. And you'll feel good knowing the money you spend here helps make this a better place to live. Support the dealership that supports Albuquerque, the all-new Gala Chevrolet.
Dream Style Remodeling has been wowing homeowners in New Mexico since 1989. Selected as Best Custom Home Remodeler for 3 consecutive years by readers of the Albuquerque Journal, we're also your exclusive provider for top home improvement brands like Renewal by Anderson, Four Seasons, Blaze King, and many others. Founded and headquartered in Albuquerque, Dream Style Remodeling is family owned and now employs more than 500 people across the southwestern U.S. In fact, we've helped more than 60,000 homeowners improve their home in New Mexico, Arizona, California, Idaho, and West Texas. We're committed to providing a superior customer experience. We've earned 4.6 stars with hundreds of online reviews and have an A+ with the BBB. Dream Style Remodeling is a proud supporter of UNM Athletics. Visit our beautiful 10,000 square foot showroom at 1460 Renaissance Boulevard across from Sam's Club or DreamStyleRemodeling.com to make your home remodeling dreams come true.
Nothing completes a trip downtown like a visit to Lindy's Cafe. You won't find a more relaxing restaurant to unwind at. Located on 5th and Central, proud supporters of Proview Networks, Lindy's strives to be a friendly and welcoming place.
Lindy's, a great place to be seen.
Car Crafters, proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
Are you sure we're supposed to be doing this?
Don't worry, I've watched him do it 1,000 times. Come on, what's the worst that can happen?
No! Bad dog!
Hi, welcome to Car Crafters. What happened?
Don't worry, we'll make it like it never happened.
Car Crafters, it's like it never happened.
The Sports Desk is proudly presented by Car Crafters. It's like it never happened.
And hi again. Welcome to the Sports Desk. I'm Scott Gallotti. Ed Nunez will be back next week. We have a special guest here. We're going to talk all things his books. We're also going to talk about high school sports. We got the brackets coming up for this weekend's baseball playoffs. And we bring in from ESPN Radio 101.7 the team, the Rio Rancho Observer. He also works with the Isotopes, Gary Heron.
Thank you, Scott, for having me as a guest.
How you doing?
Living the dream.
You have me as a guest all the time, so
yeah.
I figured I'd repay the favor. Yeah.
Payback.
I don't know if that's a good payback or a bad payback, but made you come in on a Tuesday morning.
Good to put in a cameo appearance.
Well, there you go. First off, tell the folks out there what your role is with the Isotopes, because you've been part of that role for a long time.
A lot of people get confused when you tell them you're an official scorer. They think, oh, you run a scoreboard. No, the official score basically has some official capacity as far as a ball's hit to the shortstop, he bobbles it, makes a late, throws it, a hit is an error. The official score rules on hits and errors as well as wild pitches and pass balls. And then there's other stats along with, was that an RBI? The other day a guy hit the ball to the center fielder, guy was coming around second to score. Center fielder kicked the ball. So the guy got an RBI, continued to second. He doesn't get a double. He gets a single and an E8. So, you know, it's basically that. My first game I did was for the Albuquerque Dukes back in 1983. Did 6 games that season, 20 and 84. Assumed the full-time duties at the midpoint of the 85 season. Did over 1,000 Dukes games and more than 500 Isotopes games. So I don't think anybody's seen more baseball than me. I'm not bragging. It's fact.
Wow. Well, Lee Deaver over at UNM, he's seen a lot of games, but
Yeah, I don't even think he's seen half of what you've seen.
He scores so many games.
That's why I brought him up, and I knew you knew that.
I've got to care about a game before I'm there and
Right.
scoring it. But no, it's been a good gig to get paid and fed to watch baseball. There's probably no better job for a baseball fan.
Now, I'm glad that you brought up what you do in terms of official scoring, because in high school, Baseball, maybe not so much, but softball especially. Sometimes there isn't a official score. You might have 2 or 3 books lying around and you don't know who to go by. I bring that up simply because minor league baseball, what you put down, unless there's a change, that is record, and you can look back the records as far as how long they keep the records.
Oh yeah, no doubt about that. And I've had people say, "Oh, you got my career in your hands." You know, no, not really. One error in a 140 game season is not going to affect it. Losing an RBI or something like that is not going to affect it. And the one thing I've always prided myself on being objective. I'm not a home team scorer. I try to even forget about which team's at bat or who's batting, because sometimes you like one guy more than another, and just try to keep it objective. Pat McKernan told me one time, the late Pat McKernan, that I was the toughest scorer in the Pacific Coast League, and I interpreted that as the fairest.
Well, I'm glad that you said that you were a fair scorer, not a homer scorer, because one of the other things that an official scorer endures on the collegiate level, and especially on the pro level, is that phone call from either the clubhouse or down in the dugout. Hey, you got this wrong.
Right.
You get that all the time, don't you?
Actually, I've scored, I've done 5 games. In April, I did 5 games, and only one controversial call.
Oh, that's good.
That the opposing manager wanted rectified, and we watched the replay. Well, and that's the benefit. I didn't have that back in the old days with
Right.
the Dukes. There was no replay unless Van Tate or Bob Brown happened to be there for a couple innings, and I could have them replay it, look through the little cup in black and white, and say, okay. But that wasn't true all the time, so it wasn't fair. Now I can see replays from multiple views there in the up in the press box.
Yeah, and that goes with all the AAA teams especially, but I think all the minor league teams have some sort of video that they have officially now that is by minor league baseball.
Yeah, they're all on the web.
They're all on the web, and what is it, at least 3-4 cameras, because basically they're embedded in the stadium like they are at Ice Tub Sports.
Well, for sure, they've got the one in center field, they've got the one in the press box aimed down on the plate, and they've got one at first base and third base in the camera wells, so that's a minimum of 4.
And I know with Major League Baseball's input, they're able to isolate those. So I don't know how much that is in equipment, but that's basically probably brought in from the higher up, and you got that for record, right?
The drawback, if it's a drawback, is I have to watch every play, every pitch, so I have to wait between innings to go down there and ask them to cue it up. And Gary Williams is down there and overseeing that. But sometimes there may be 3 or 4 other guys that have batted.
So you're actually doing that during the game and not at the end of the game?
Oh, no, I don't want to do it at the end of the game because the announcers want to know what happens. And a lot of times it's either, I hate to say, error, E6 pending review.
Right.
And then they got to, if it happens in the first inning, that's a long way.
Right.
Or those earned runs, or the unearned runs. So I try to do it between innings, but while we're doing that, they're running other things, promotions and stuff that are up on the scoreboard. So those guys have to be really dexterous down there in the big control room. Looks like the command center for the Starship Enterprise.
Since we are in baseball season, I've always wanted to ask you about your official scoring stuff.
Don't put me on the spot.
I'll put you on the spot. No, I won't. But in terms of how long have you been doing this? What made you want to be an official scorer? Because there's a lot into that. Number one, like you said, everyone's career is quote unquote in your hands. Yeah. And what you say, especially on the minor league, and if you were a major league scorer, it would be the same thing. What you say goes.
Well, I'll try to give you the Reader's Digest version, Scott, because back in 1983, I was working at the Valencia County News Bulletin and had always had an interest in baseball, and I'd cover a handful of games a year. And there was a time when Chuck Hines, a lot of people know Chuck Hines, he used to coach golf at St. Pius, used to be the color guy with Mike Roberts on Level Basketball. Check that, Mike, he would say. And I would fill in for him and on a real part-time basis. Like I said, 6 games in 83, 20 games in 84, and then Chuck decided to chuck it midway through 85. And I was more or less the heir apparent. So I started doing it, and I don't think I ever missed a game. I missed a game one time because there was an armed shooter down in Berlin, and I stayed there for that incident. But I was always getting to games, and so I was reliable. That's be there on time, be reliable.
Right.
You can't ask for much more than that. And it developed, and I think I've done more games currently among the PCL scorekeepers than anybody else in the league. But 1,500, that's a chunk, right?
Gary Herron from ESPN Radio 1017, The Team, the Rio Rancho Observer, and the official score for the Isotopes. Do you do anything else for the Isotopes or just the official score?
Basically just that. There were times in the past where I wrote some stories for the programs, but that's about it. I'm pretty busy, and I'm still a baseball hobbyist, but you know, we can't get the autographs when we're in the press pass. But if I'm not at a game as the media, I sometimes, you know, get an autograph. Bucky Dent comes to mind,
Right.
and some other guys. So I mean, it's just a love of baseball. It's a good gig.
Now, we'll get into this later in the show because we got Gary Herron for the show here today, but we're going to talk about your books actually, but we'll talk about the newest book because I know that's taken you a long time to get this beautiful version right here, and it's worth the read.
Another labor of love.
Well, labor is the big part, and we'll talk about that a little later, but tell the folks some of the special moments that you've seen just in your scoring, because I mean, when you've done all the Dukes when you first started, now the Isotopes games, you've seen a lot of great moments.
I have, but you know, they don't all file into my brain. I remember this one in 1989, a fellow named Tom Drees, D-R-E-E-S, a pitcher for the Vancouver Canadians, had pitched back-to-back no-hitters. And Vancouver was coming to the Albuquerque Sports Stadium for what would have been his third consecutive no-hitter. You know, nobody had ever done that before. Who was it? Ewell Blackwell threw back-to-back no-hitters in the major leagues. And so Tom Drees came in, and I was getting calls literally from New York City and L.A. wanting to know how he was doing. Well, the drama didn't last long. Tracy Woodson, who later managed for the Dukes, hit a home run in the first inning, and there was no way they could dispute that call. That's a hit. And so that ended his bid for 3 consecutive no-hitters. I was at a game, not as the official scorer, but saw Franklin Stubbs hit 4 home runs in a game. I've been an official scorer for the 93 AAA All-Star game and the 2007 AAA All-Star game. But after 1,500 games, it basically comes down to, you know, when guys, you see them in majors on TV, you go, I remember that guy. Another time I remember being, before a game, the Dukes were playing, and I can't remember if it was Tacoma or Calgary, a youngster, 19-year-old guy named Alex Rodriguez, maybe you've heard of him, was down in the clubhouse playing cards with his buddies, and I went down there and had a baseball, and he signed that for me, and that was pretty nice. I since moved it from a prominent spot in my room with the PED accusations, so he's no longer a top shelf kind of guy, but that was kind of neat. And like I said, seeing Bucky Dent, interviewing him, being with the media connection and knowing who was going to be there, sitting in the dugout talking to Sandy Koufax, Max Patkin, Mo Drabowski, guys like that. It's just been, you know, priceless memories, really.
Max Patkin.
Clown Prince of baseball.
I remember him from my days doing minor league play-by-play, and actually I had an opportunity as the media relations person and kind of part of the marketing arm, I guess, as well. I was not in charge, but I was part of the booking process, so I get to see what he charged and everything else.
Everybody got a glimpse of him and Bull Durham. And one of my gripes with the Baseball Hall of Fame is Abbott and Costello are in there for one routine. Who's on first?
Right.
Max Patkin entertained at thousands of ball games. He's not in there. I think he should be, albeit it was mostly minor league games. I still thought he was a real.
How is he not in there?
A real great ambassador for baseball.
Everybody knew Max Patkin.
Maybe they're worried if he goes in, then it's going to be the San Diego Chicken and the Myron Noodleman and the Philly Fanatic.
Well, those guys should be in there too.
Have the mascot wing.
Well,
entertainment wing.
Those guys should be in there too. And Myron was a guy I never got to deal with, but the Chicken, both in minor league basketball and minor league baseball, I got to deal with, and was in charge of the Chicken had 3 different tiers of what kind of shows he did. Hey, you can buy this one, this one, or this one. There was an A, B, and C.
Yeah.
True story.
Ted Giannoulis? I got his autograph.
Yep. Ted Giannoulis. I got pictures with him in the suit.
You were in the suit?
No. I wasn't in it. No, he wouldn't let anyone touch that thing.
Can you imagine
but I
how
got
it
pictures
smells?
of him in our old office of him and I in the suit. So it was fun. A nice guy. I got to take him out to dinner and everything. I mean, in the minor league basketball, part of my role was I was the ambassador, if you will. So visiting coaches, visiting teams, visiting referees. Got to take them all out to dinner. So it was.
Well, it's been fun talking about the book.
Kind of a weird thing. Oh, we got plenty of time to talk about the book, but did you ever find yourself? You said you knew like who was coming in, like you'd get like you would get the memo, if you will. Oh, so and so is coming to town. Was there ever a time when you knew that there was a specific player coming to town? So, oh, I get to see him in person. You don't seem like that kind of guy who gets in awe of too many things, but has there ever been that kind of moment?
No, I don't fawn over too many guys. I tell you what, I've had the opportunity to have Bob Feller and Maury Wills in my car. But actually,
that's a better story.
Josh Hamilton, when he was on a rehab assignment a few years ago, because he was the guy who had drug problems and all that, and I wondered, there were a lot of people wanting his autograph, and I thought, do I want to be a fan and get him to sign something, or do I want to be the media and get a picture of him signing? And he was obliging to everybody. He was a great guy. So that was kind of neat seeing Josh Hamilton. I always wished for better for him because he was such a gentleman there for the fans.
We will take a break, come back with more. Gary Herron from ESPN Radio 101.7 The Team, Rio Rancho Observer, the official scorer for the Isotopes. Need I go on? We'll have more from him in just a moment, but first, the Dream Style Top 10 Plays of the Week.
Digging for home. Play at the plate. Safe. What a slide by Wilson.
Harden is off the plate, and now he's going to run to home, and we've got a pickle here. And Harden going to go diving in, and he's safe.
Safe. Runner goes to second, out at second.
Got her.
Out at second, so. Swung on first pitch. Oh, nice catch left. Hit the ball well. Defensively. Runner's going to second. There's the tag. Runner's out. Oh, what a catch in right field.
Nice catch.
What a catch in right field to retire Ibben. Great catch out there. What about swinging? Here's the payoff. Swung on. It's a deep left field.
Whoa.
That ball is gone.
It's gone.
Two-run home run by Aaliyah Ibben. That put Volcano Vista up 2-0. Ibben waits and takes some good pitches, works the count to a full count, and hits the payoff pitch for a two-run homer to left field. Roger, great.
This Andres Quintana, and this one is skyrocketed deep out to center field, and that baby is gone.
As one of the only locally owned dealerships in Albuquerque, Gala Chevrolet understands the importance of giving back to our community. After all, we're not a franchise dealership or some corporate-owned conglomerate. We're a local business working hard to make this a better place to live. That's why you'll feel good knowing the money you spend here stays here and supports a long list of community organizations like the Police Department, Sheriff's Department, and many, many more. Support the dealership that supports Albuquerque, the all-new Gala Chevrolet.
The New Mexico High School Coaches Association, established in 1941, is an organization of New Mexico's best and most professional interscholastic coaches. Coaches across work daily to help our student athletes excel in the classroom, on the field of play, and in our communities. Students that participate in interscholastic activities attain higher grades, higher graduation rates, and higher wages. Responsible for the North-South All-Star Games, statewide Coaches Award Program, and providing multiple professional development opportunities for New Mexico's coaches. Be a great coach by coaching beyond the game.
Well, I'm going to the frontier, walk up to the cashier, order up a root beer and a number one. Cover it with green stuff, one scoop is not enough. Find a booth is real tough, back by the Duke. Meet my family, meet my friends in the quirkiest restaurant I have ever been. All of Albuquerque's favorite spot. It's the Frontier Restaurant.
The Frontier Restaurant is a proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
Hey, New Mexico, come check out the newly remodeled guest rooms at the new Wyndham Albuquerque Hotel and Conference Center, featuring 309 rooms, 30,000 square feet of meeting space. New Mexico's only indoor water park featuring the Wave Runner. 2,200 square foot fitness center with hydro massage chairs. Also enjoy breakfast at our new Manzanita Grill and watch your favorite team play at Altitude Sports Bar and Grill. It's all at Wyndham Albuquerque Hotel and Conference Center.
Don't sacrifice quality and flavor when you're in a hurry. Golden Pride offers ribs, fried chicken, green and red chili breakfast burritos, and Frontier Cinnabons. 4 great locations, or visit us online at goldenpride@abq.com. Golden Pride Barbecue Chicken and Ribs, proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
Carmody Medical provides solutions for your everyday needs. Hot and cold compression wraps provide therapeutic compression for the shoulder, hip, and knee. The therapy wraps are constructed of an insulated outer fabric and a ventilated cotton pocket to protect the body. Elastic belts allow mobility and deliver a gentle, adjustable compression. The reusable therapy packs can be removed from the pouch and placed into the freezer. Contact Jim for more information.
And welcome back here to the Sports Desk. I'm Scott Galletti. Ed Nunez will rejoin us next week. We have Alden Iowani and the crew here getting the job done as our director and our staff. We have Gary Herron from the Rio Rancho Observer, ESPN Radio 101.7 The Team, and the official score for the Isotopes. And the main reason, Gary, that we brought you in was to talk about this guy right here, 50 years at the pit.
First, let's say an official score. There's like 3 or 4 of us, including Frank Mercogliano, that share duties.
Oh,
I'm not the only guy. Like I used to be for the Dukes.
I didn't know that you missed any games.
From 86 through 99, I did every Dukes home game. But with the Isotopes, it's been 15. This is 16th year. I do 30 or 40 a year. So it's a rotation.
So you don't do the whole schedule?
No, I've got too much. I've got a real job.
Right. Well, I mean, that's a lot of work, so that's still a lot of games. But I didn't realize that you only. When did you start working on this? Let's start there.
I think it was about 3 years ago. A fellow at UNM Press called me because he knew I was a local author and had some knowledge in the sports world, and asked if I knew anybody that might be willing to put together this book. And I gave him several names, and apparently he contacted the 2 to 5 guys, and nobody was interested in doing it. So I thought, well, I've got a lot of photos, I've got a lot of memorabilia, I basically save everything. And plus I've been at the '83 Final Four, and it's a book about the pit. I don't want people to think it's all about Lobo men's basketball, because there's also Lobo women's basketball, and there's a lot of things that have happened in the pit in 50 years. High school graduations and memorial services for Mike Roberts and Bob King and Johnny Tapia. It's been bull riding in there, and tennis, and gymnastics. So I wanted to include a little bit about everything, and so I took it on, and it's, again, the phrase I used earlier was a labor of love, like my other books that get the big royalty checks of $1 or $2 every few months. I'm going to go out and buy a boat. And I started assembling it, thanks to the help of Frank Mercogliano at UNM, getting into the old files there at the South Athletic Complex, going through 10 or 12 file drawers, picking photos I wanted to use. Hopefully, on the back it said who it was and what season.
Right.
And then I've got all the media guides going back to 79, 80, maybe even before that. And then they had a couple from the Ellenberger days. And so I had beaucoup of stuff. And I'd also covered the Lobo women's program for the first 4 years when they brought it back in 92, 93. So I've been there watching Mo Eckroth, the Linsome Don Flanagan for a while. And I'd been there to Ty Murray, and I've been to so many events. So it was just kind of organizing it, making sure I had enough images, because UNM wanted so many words, so many thousand words, or UNM Press, so many images and all that. And then I also contacted a lot of former players, broadcasters, and media members and said, what's the night or the game at the pit you'll never forget? And they're sprinkled throughout there too.
How much editing was involved? Like you said, I know I was fortunate enough to make the book with my quotes. Steve Davis was as well, but you had to weed out people. What was the process and what you used and what you didn't use? Because I'm sure that anybody could have given a viable great
Oh, yeah,
moment. So I'm sure that there was a lot of editing involved.
Well, I did all the writing and ran the spell check and hoped, that there was accuracies. It's been pointed out there's some inaccuracies. But
I guess what I'm talking about is how did you weed out what was being used? That's what I
can
meant
easily
by the
answer that
editing.
because I had obviously more than I needed, and UNM Press decided who was quoted, whose quote went where in the book.
Okay.
So that they took care of that.
They took care of that.
Yeah, so
okay.
I like it. It's a high quality book. It took them a little bit, into April really before it became available locally. And with the great season the Lobo men and Lobo women had this year, I wish it would have been available toward the end of the season at the Lobo Den at the Pit, Dreamstyle Arena. And I'm thankful that it wasn't 51 years at the Pit after the debacle that happened in the 16-17 season.
Yeah. Well, the 17-18 season was very, very good, but like you said, this isn't necessarily about Lobo basketball. Nationally, the Pit isn't even known for the Lobos.
Right.
It's known for Jim Valvano running around on the court with two teams not from Albuquerque.
Yeah, 4 teams altogether. I covered that Final Four. I was probably the media member from the smallest entity, the Valencia County News Bulletin. I sat way up in the southwest corner of the Pit, right across to the North Carolina State Band. I was at all the press conferences and down on the photos in there from after North Carolina State beat Houston. Those are my photos. I was right down there from me to you, from Valvano and Derek Wittenberg and the Stars. And there's a fold-up poster that I picked up off the Pit floor, and I've had it for 35 years now, and tickets from the game. I got media credentials. Ironically, I got a media credential, and I also had been in the drawing for tickets. So I had 2 tickets, which I sold for $500, which was pretty good in '83. It's chump change now, right?
Right.
It's fill up a gas, it went up again.
Well, it is kind of funny, though, how the Pit gets different reactions from different people that I've talked to, depending on where I'm at.
Yeah.
Like here, everyone knows, hey, the Pit Lobos, they have a favorite Lobo moment. And everyone that I've talked to away from here, either in California or wherever I've been, oh yeah, the Pit, yeah, they had the NCAA, Valvano, this and that.
Isn't that where New Mexico State plays?
And I think a couple of people out of town brought up Georgetown, the near win for the Lobos, and a couple of people bring up Arizona, but for the most part, out-of-staters bring up the Valvano moment, and in-staters never bring up the Valvano moment, it seems like.
Yeah, well, there were fewer of them probably at that game, with all the accommodations they had to make for the media, for the bands and everything. There were fewer local people that could get there, whereas 18,000 local fans could go to UNM against UNLV. But how many could get in there for the Final Four with higher ticket prices and everything?
Yeah, I was very fortunate. Being my first year was the last year of the 18,000 plus. So it was kind of a roller coaster season. They started off slow. I remember the Lobos went to Cancun after they laid an egg there. Steve Alford and Craig Neal had a team meeting and kind of laid the law down. They went on a long winning streak, ended up in a 3-way tie for first that year. Last game of the year was against Utah, and the place was nuts. BYU came to town, place was nuts. UNLV, everyone else, it was standard. Everyone was cheering, everyone was making noise. If you're not covering your ears, you're going to go deaf kind of games. But that Utah game came to mind, and I bring it up because it wasn't the moment that I brought up in the book, simply because consistently it wasn't as loud as the moment that I brought up when CBS, the actual network, not CBS College Sports, came to town, did a nationally televised game of the Lobos with UNLV, and the place was nuts from at least an hour. From when they opened the door, the place was nuts. And it reminded me of like going to places like BYU, where they opened the door, all of a sudden, I'll never forget, one of the locals was telling me and Scott Diedrichson, my former partner on the radio, watch this. They opened the door at BYU, and it's sunken in like the Pit. So people in like San Diego State, so people are coming downstairs to get to the front. Thousands of students come. Next thing you know, out of that 20,000 seat arena, there's 10,000 students within 5-10 minutes. All of a sudden there, it's like it's the most awe-striking. That's what that UNLV game was like. People camping out, people coming in early, and you couldn't find room, let alone a seat.
Yeah, the Pit used to look like a warehouse, and they spiced it up a bit, with $60 million. A lot of people miss the old days. I don't think we're going to see a return with that noise and everything. There used to be a story that Toe Diem, the old trainer, was operating a thing that would move the gear or the gauge up at the northeast corner of the pit for how loud it was. That it wasn't really the actual loudness. He was moving a gauge, but that was. I mean, the other Arizona game that I liked a lot. Actually, the Utah game was when Royce Olney mugged Andre Miller, got the ball, and the Lobos came in and won that game.
Well, that's a different Utah game. I'm thinking the Utah game, Steve Alford's second year, where they basically clinched. They had to go to Wyoming and beat Wyoming to stay in a three-way tie for first, but that's where they actually clinched going head-to-head against Utah.
This was a Dave Bliss era, and the reason I brought that up is because now I'm privy to seeing Royce Olney's nephew, Royce Olney, and his other nephew, Owen Olney, play for Rio Rancho, and there's some pretty good ball players. They surprise, they can drain three-pointers.
Yeah, well, anybody. I think that's a prerequisite to play at Rio Rancho, isn't it?
No, not so much.
It's not?
There's been a couple years, like that. But
well, there's a couple of good inside players, but they can definitely drain the threes. So when you started this book, walk us through from start to finish what you were trying to accomplish.
Filling those pages, having enough for every chapter. Having enough good memories, there's other.
So what was the rhyme and the reason? Like every chapter, to get from the beginning to the crescendo, what were you building from? Actually, yes, I asked you that. Yes.
Crescendo. I had advice or guidance from the editors at UNM Press as far as how to arrange things. Mm-hmm. So I always like doing things chronologically. I'm reading a book right now about Lefty O'Doul, and it starts in the 30s, and all of a sudden it's up to 1949, and him going to Japan to play baseball, and then it's back to 1934, and it's like, this is, I don't like that. I want to do it chronologically.
You don't want to do the back and forth.
Most of the chapters are kind of chronological. It was the Lobo basketball starts it. There's, I think, 3 chapters in there, and the various coaches start with Bob King and moving from Johnson Gym to University Arena. And then, I want to make sure I include enough high school hoops, boys and girls, because they say all the high school players in New Mexico want to play in the pit. And, a lot of them get to do that. That's very fortunate. And, of course, Ty Murray. And I wanted to include everything. I got onto Facebook and asked people for the concerts they remember going to at the pit, as opposed to the other venues, Tingley and the Civic Auditorium, and the graduation and all that. Obviously, it's not like Ed McMahon would say, everything you want to know about the pit is enclosed in this book. I say it's like a scrapbook, Scott.
Yeah. Well, that's probably the best way to put it. And it's great that you put in all the other stuff as well. Did you put in WWE?
I'm not sure if that's in there. It may be a small reference because I know they've had that out in other places.
Well, they used to have big-time events in WWE, and then they did the renovation, and they had, I think, one since that time, and it really didn't draw that well. And
I'm more for the boxing because Sean, the Irish Sean McLean boxed in there, Johnny Tapia and Danny Romero.
Well, how can you go wrong with Johnny Tapia?
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, it's well known before we go to break, he was a sellout waiting to happen.
Yeah, 5-time world champ, and they had his memorial funeral service there at the pit.
We will take a break, come back with more. Gary Herron in just a moment here on the Sports Desk.
Get into the game with Garden Swartz Team Sales. They have everything you need, from screen printing, embroidery, and digital printing services, high school letterman jackets, and all high school and club uniforms and individual and team apparel with the most reliable brands like Speedline, Rollins, and Wilson. And don't forget to check out the latest F7 Shut helmet. It's all at Garden Swartz Team Sales. Give them a call, 505-884-1234. Garden Swartz Team Sales.
Folks, there's no other way but to be all in. Either he's Lord of all or he is not Lord at all. And you can experience the real and authentic, true life change that only God can provide to humanity. See, when we truly encounter Jesus and purpose to know him and follow his teachings, #life change will occur.
Terry Cosper Insurance Agency is a proud partner with Proview Networks and a proud supporter of New Mexico high school athletics. Terry's been a local farmer's agent for over 20 years for auto, home, life, and business insurance. Just like high school sports are important, so are teen drivers. For more information, call Terry or one of his licensed staff members at 898-5556. Quotes are available for you. Gecko's Bar and Tapas, a proud supporter of Proview Networks. It's been a fan favorite spot for food lovers and sports fans. With not one, but two great locations, including outdoor patio, an atmosphere you won't want to miss. Gecko's, off Academy and in Nob Hill. Hey everyone, Adam Deal here with Proview Networks. Extreme Clean is a proud sponsor and supporter of Proview Networks and all high school sports athletics. Owner Mike McLean and Extreme Clean specialize in carpet cleaning for apartment, realty, business, and residential clients. With over 20 years experience, attention to detail and quality customer service matters. For more information, give them a call, 505-221-6440, Extreme Clean.
Sadie's is a proud supporter of New Mexico high school sports and athletics, and we here at Proview Networks would like to thank Sadie's for their continued support in helping us bring you all of your New Mexico high school sports coverage.
Don't forget, every Proview Network sporting event is on sale at our DVD store. Go to www.proviewNetworks.com to buy your DVD today.
The Barley Room, a proud sponsor of Proview Networks for over 9 years, is pleased to introduce Black Iron Catering. From weddings and family reunions to birthdays and office parties, Black Iron Catering is perfect for any event. Contact Jamie at 505-459-8259 and book your event today. Black Iron Catering. Let us bring our kitchen to you.
As one of the only locally owned businesses in Albuquerque, Gala Chevrolet understands the importance of giving back to our community. And you'll feel good knowing the money you spend here helps make this a better place to live. Support the dealership that supports Albuquerque, the all-new Gala Chevrolet.
When I train for American Ninja Warrior, I schedule regular workouts to stay in shape. To keep my car in Ninja Tough shape, I head to a Napa Auto Care Center for regular maintenance and genuine Napa Auto parts. Like brakes and batteries. I trust my Napa Auto Care Center for quality parts and quality service. And with the 24-month, 24,000-mile nationwide warranty, I drive away with peace of mind every time. Visit AutoCareNM.com to find a location near you.
Dreamstyle Remodeling has been wowing homeowners in New Mexico since 1989. Selected as Best Custom Home Remodeler for 3 consecutive years by readers of the Albuquerque Journal, we're also your exclusive provider for top home improvement brands like Renewal by Anderson, Four Seasons, Blaze King, and many others. Founded and headquartered in Albuquerque, Dreamstyle Remodeling is family-owned and now employs more than 500 people across the southwestern U.S. In fact, we've helped more than 60,000 homeowners improve their home in New Mexico, Arizona, California, Idaho, and West Texas. We're committed to providing a superior customer experience. We've earned 4.6 stars with hundreds of online reviews and have an A+ with the BBB. Dreamstyle Remodeling is a proud supporter of UNM Athletics. Visit our beautiful 10,000 square foot showroom at 1460 Renaissance Boulevard across from Sam's Club or DreamStyleRemodeling.com to make your home remodeling dreams come true.
And welcome back here to the Sports Desk. I'm Scott Galletti along with Gary Herron from ESPN Radio 1017 The Team, the Rio Rancho Observer, and one of the official scorers for the Albuquerque Isotopes. We have Alden Iowani along with Josh Brown and Jason Pohl back in the back. The crew is all here working, and always got to give a shout out to these guys. They work too darn hard.
You don't get on the air without the people behind the scenes.
Nope, and they're definitely behind the scenes.
Behind every good sportscaster is a good woman.
Well, no, I'm not going to call them women, no. But anyway, the good people. How about hardworking people?
Good peeps.
So let's get back to what we were talking about. Gary, that is your book. Not your first book. You've written some others, especially on baseball, which I know is your love. Baseball in Albuquerque, and talk about some of the other books.
Guilty as Charged. Became a fan, more or less, of the Arcadia series. They do a lot of small town America type books, and I do a lot of traveling, so it's neat to see a book like that. They're small format, maybe 6 by 8, a lot of photos, a lot of black and white photos with captions, and I thought there's never been a book about baseball in Albuquerque. So this was back in 2011, and I pitched a book about baseball in Albuquerque to them, and they said, you know, kind of go for it. So I did that. There's not a whole lot of writing in it. It's mostly, I think it's 180 photographs. And I've got a pretty extensive collection. I went to the Museum of Albuquerque, and this, the earliest photo I think is from 1894.
Wow.
The old Albuquerque team, the Albuquerque Browns. And so that was, and I learned a lot while I was assembling.
They moved to
that
Cleveland,
book.
right? No.
They moved to St. Louis.
Yeah.
I learned a lot, and I thought, I really wish I would have had more room to write about that, but that wasn't the format of that book. So I pitched to people at Rio Grande Press in Los Ranchos about doing a more all-encompassing book. And I'd broken it into 9 chapters. How creative, huh? And so there's a lot more writing. There's different photos. There's the greatest players of Albuquerque, the top 100 players. I mean, I learned a lot. There was a guy, and right now because you caught me off guard, I don't remember his name, but he played for Albuquerque in something like I think it was on one of the first teams, which really was 1937. And great player. He went and played in the Pacific Coast League for a while, came back, and then led the Albuquerque Dukes in hitting in 1949. It was like, what an amazing guy, because he was 12 years older, and he still had a great career. But it was learning. So basically, I know I can be Mr. Baseball here in Albuquerque. There aren't a whole lot of questions you can ask about the history of baseball here that I don't have an answer to or know where to find it. That came out, the first one, the Arcadia book, was 2011. This other book, Duke City Diamonds, Baseball in Albuquerque, published locally, came out in 2013. And then I thought, I'd had so much fun with the first Arcadia book, I thought, well, let's do something on something else I know about. Well, there's not a lot, but I thought Rio Rancho, because I've been working out there for so long. And it's a kind of neat city. It's got its start in the 60s, AMREP, all that. Glengarry, Glen Ross, if you've seen that movie, it's reminiscent of the early days of Rio Rancho. And I had a lot of photos there, too, thanks to working for the Rio Rancho Observer. So I did that book in 2015. And then until UNM Press contacted me about this book, maybe a few months later, there was a void in writing books. But this is the 4th and final book. There was There was an email I got a few weeks ago from a guy back east that wanted to know if I'd like to do another book on baseball in Albuquerque. I said, the way these first 2 are selling, definitely no. Well, you got to look at it. What's the market? Who cares about baseball in Albuquerque? Well, you got the city of Albuquerque, and then you got baseball fans that maybe moved to L.A. that knew the Dukes back in the days of Mike Scioscia and all those guys. But beyond that, there's SABR, Society for American Baseball Research members that want to know more about baseball. But almost every small town or medium-sized town had its own baseball team, and there's not a lot of allegiance to Albuquerque. And that's why people say, oh, they should be the Dukes. Well, everybody had Dukes memorabilia. How about isotopes? Isotopes are known worldwide. Oh, it's a baseball team? No, but we know it from The Simpsons. So that was all a marketing thing, but that's basically it. There's not that interest beyond if people don't already have the book here in Albuquerque, they probably don't want it. I've got some in my trunk.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, the Simpsons theme. I happen to know Ken Levine, who was a major player in The Simpsons, so it's it's kind of fun to see, and kind of strange to see how that metamorphed.
And Matt Groening lived in Albuquerque, so that was a pretty good connection.
Yeah.
Oh, Albuquerque isotopes.
It's pretty good. Oh, by the way, if this was the locker room with Bob Brown, he'd be saying, "Hey, Mike, flag the tape." You know, when you said that I caught you off guard. I don't know if I've ever heard you say that in the almost 10 years that I've known you.
What, the Albuquerque isotopes?
No, you've been caught off guard. No one catches Gary Herron off guard.
I can be Flip. Not to be confused with Flip Wilson.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's nothing else that would bring you out of the woodwork to write another book.
You know, and I read so much. I have so many interests, but so many things that interest me. But I'm thinking that's a lot of work, and you really want to make some money. You know, you'd like to at least break even. It's like having a tournament. I see people that put on a basketball tournament and they lose money. It's like you at least want to break even. You put a lot of work into it, you know, and it'd have to be a labor of love and something I was passionately interested in and had the time for. And then you'd expect to make a few dollars on it. You know, like I said, those labors of love. I told people, I'm not going to be the next Stephen King. You know, I just want to do it and do it right. And I thought I did it right. And you know, I'm pretty much tapped.
Well, you know, what's kind of cool is I remember when you were talking about doing the book in 2011 on baseball. And even though it was mostly, as you say, a pictorial, I know you put a ton of work into that. And same thing with this. You were talking about this when we first talked about this, and I bring it up because you were excited and ecstatic about being able to do these ventures. When you finished the hours upon hours of work, were you still ecstatic about it?
It was rewarding when they mailed me or sent. I had a big box on the stoop a few weeks ago with 9 copies of the book, and that was kind of neat seeing it, unwrapping it, taking a look at it. And the other books, you know, there's so many things I write for the newspaper. And you don't want to put my byline out. That's fine. That's okay. Yeah. My byline's been out there so many times. That's different. That gets to be old hat. But seeing your name on something like this, and this is going to be a legacy. This is in the what's the national book, the National Library or something like that. There's a specific number for each of these 4 books with my name associated with it. So if I ever die, hey, the book's still going to be there.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I was pitched years ago to write a book on the Continental Basketball Association. And that was before I became a writer. And even back then, I was a media relations person, so I knew how much writing would be involved. And I said, I don't want to do that much work.
I could contribute to that because we had the Albuquerque Silvers here for a couple of years.
Yeah, dealing with the likes of George Karl and
Norm Ellenberger.
different entities and coaches and referees. That some are still in the NBA.
Well, that was neat.
Like for example, Duke Callahan is back to being Duke. He was Duke Callahan in the CBA. Then they said, well, we're going to call you Mike, and now he's being called Duke again.
What was neat about that was, remember, was it a point for each quarter you won?
Yes.
And then you get 2.5 or 2 points for winning the game. It was broken down. You could have 3 quarters.
You got 2 points for winning. It was 3 points for winning the game, I believe, and a point. I think there was a total of 7 points.
Yeah. That was fun watching those
games.
So
that way there was always a winner at some point, so it couldn't be 3-3.
Yeah,
so it had to be 7 points, just like a 7-game series. And
I still got media guys.
I was in that league for 3 years, and that was back in the glory days of that league when they were getting call up after call up, and you know, guys sticking and everything else in the NBA.
I would tell you one other story about the pit that's memorable for me. Growing up in the suburbs of Detroit, attending Eastern Michigan University, and back at the time when I was a freshman and a sophomore, there was a fella named George Gervin playing for Eastern Michigan.
I've heard of him.
And and Bowen Fieldhouse was where they played. They were the Eastern Michigan University Hurons then. They had to be politically correct. They're the Eagles now. Like there's not a Brazilian Eagles teams now. But I saw George play, and he led the Hurons to an NAIA tournament in Kansas City, and he popped the guy in the mouth. He got kicked out of school for that. So, but it was fun watching him play, and those are some great teams they had back then. I remember going to Chrysler Arena and almost seeing Eastern Michigan beat the University of Michigan, and they had a pretty good team back then. Rudy Tomjanovich was with them, and then you flash forward 20-some years, and I'm in the pit after an exhibition game with the San Antonio Spurs, waiting to interview George Gervin. So I'd seen him as a student when he was a collegiate player, and then interviewing him before he went into the NBA Hall of Fame. That was great. That's from one end of the career to the other end, the spectrum.
Yeah, that's cool. We'll come back with one more segment. We'll go over the high school baseball brackets in just a moment here on the Sports Desk.
Nothing completes a trip downtown like a visit to Lindy's Cafe. You won't find a more relaxing restaurant to unwind at. Located on 5th and Central, proud supporters of Proview Networks, Lindy's strives to be a friendly and welcoming place.
Lindy's, a great place to be seen. Car Crafters, proud supporter of Proview Sports Network.
Are you sure we're supposed to be doing this?
Don't worry, I've watched him do it 1,000 times. Come on, what's the worst that can happen?
No! Bad dog! Hi, welcome to Car Crafters. What happened?
Don't worry, we'll make it like it never happened.
Car Crafters, it's like it never happened.
The Sports Desk is proudly presented by Car Crafters. It's like it never happened.
And welcome back here to the Sports Desk. Scott Galletti along with Gary Herron, and we are going to, as promised, go over the brackets real quickly here in baseball. They were announced here on Proview Networks, Comcast 26 over the weekend, and there's your 3A. You got number 1 Texaco, Capitan at the bottom of that bracket at number 4, Estancia is number 2, Santa Rosa number 3, and Texaco with a long history of having successful baseball teams.
You can trust your car to the man who wears a star, Texaco Wolverines.
I don't think Wolverines was part of that, but yeah, the slogan is absolutely spot on. But let's that's a pretty good looking bracket. And I know going over the coaches polls this year, it's been basically between Texaco and Estancia all season long.
Not going to argue that. I don't keep up with 3A. Let's move.
Let's go to 4A. Good segue there. Hope Christian, they get the number 1 seed. Silver's number 2, Robertson number 3, and Portales number 4. And what isn't Hope Christian number 1 at?
That's a good question. Probably wrestling, because they don't have a wrestling team.
But they always seem to get that number 1 seed. And, one of the things that needs to be mentioned here, the uniqueness about the state tournament, the first round is best 2 out of 3, then it's win or go home.
Right. Coaches wanted that, and here's a good reason I can tell you about Rio Rancho playing Mayfield a bunch of years ago. Mayfield had an ace, guy named Sanchez, and he came to Rio Rancho and beat the Rams, and then so he was available to pitch a week later in the quarterfinals. So, but then you're stuck, you don't get beyond the semifinals because you have one good pitcher. The coaches decided, let's make it more of a team game. Let's make a pitching staff have more say in who gets to the quarterfinals.
Why not have a 2 out of 3 the entire time?
Because the kids will be graduating. There was one year with the state tournament the way it used to be. Rio Rancho high school kids got their diplomas and then had to race out to Isotopes Park to play the championship game.
Well,
But see, the softball is the other way. It's a 1-game elimination, then it's a double loss. Once you've lost twice, you're out in softball.
Right.
But I always like to defer to the coaches. If this is the way the coaches want it, that's fine with me.
Let's go to 5A now in the baseball brackets. And you have Goddard, number 1, Farmington, number 2, St. Pius, 3rd, Belen is 4th, and Goddard being number 1, they've been number 1 for a while. Farmington's kind of gone up and down in the top 5 all season long in the coaches poll.
Perennially a great area, the Four Corners for baseball, because Piedra Vista is undefeated and won 6A, went 8-0. That's a good place to be playing baseball.
Speaking of which, we will delve into an area where both of us are a little more familiar. That's 6A, and you got La Cueva number 1, you got Centennial number 2, PV, Piedra Vista is number 3, and Clovis is number 4. And Mike Magaha building a tradition up at Piedra Vista. He's now playing with the big boys, and I know talking with a couple of folks last year before they went into their first season in 6A, everyone's saying, oh, hey, we're a lock. Everyone, is so used to them just being head and shoulders better than everyone else. And, now they're where the big boys play. And they are one of the big boys, but at the same time, when you look at La Cueva, Clovis is number 4. You got Centennial at number 2. They play in an extremely tough district in District 3. There's a lot of teams that you could point at and say, well, they're good, but, and where do you start?
I start with La Cueva, 22-game winning streak.
Kind of hard to have a but on that,
Yeah, it's Gerard Pineda has always got his guys ready to play, and Clovis, I've seen them play a few times at the Rio Rancho tournament. They're a darn good team. Colson Faircloth, great pitcher. He doesn't probably break glass. He's more like a Greg Maddox, but he throws strikes. Centennial, I thought maybe Clovis should have been number 2. Cleveland went down and beat Centennial last week or recently, and it's like, God, when you're playing at home in an important game, you should win, but Cleveland beat Centennial. But PV, I saw them shut out Rio Rancho 3-0 the other day. I have no qualm with the brackets. I know Orlando Griego with Rio Grande was telling me, he was on my show last Saturday, he thought they'd be a 7 or an 8, and of course they're the 9, they have to go play at Cleveland. He's going to say, hey, this is where it gets done, is on the field, so it'll be interesting.
Now at the same time, wouldn't you, if you were a player, would you rather play at Rio Grande or Cleveland?
Depends where my parents lived.
How about the field? What field would you rather play on?
Rio Grande's probably got more enthusiastic fans.
That's true.
And a long tradition.
Right.
And Orlando's he's been there 23 years. He's done so much with that field. They take such pride in that.
Yeah.
Rio Rancho, they drive in, the field's ready to go. There's no There's nobody. Ron Murphy's not there on the mower. You know, they got somebody else that does the turf. No, I love Rio Rancho. They got the press box. It's a great place to be. Cleveland's a great facility too. But if I don't know, because I don't know what it would be like to be a 17 or 18-year-old kid now, because I have different values than what today's society has.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's go back to La Cueva. You bring up Coach Pineda. He's done a great job, and one of the things that really impresses me about his teams, and I had a chance to see the first game of a doubleheader a couple of weeks ago when they played Sandia, and Sandia was going head to toe with them, looked like a game that Sandia could win. La Cueva pulls it out, and then they win the next game going away. And they got such a workman-like attitude. It's not like, hey, we won the championship last year, we're the best team ever. No, they go out and prove it each and every day, and you could see it in the mindset of the kids where, you know, some players and some teams will say, we take it one game at a time.
Yeah.
These guys literally do.
They expect to be there, and it's been a great baseball tradition since they opened back in '85 or '86. They do all the fundamentals. They always have great pitching. They have great defense. Every guy can swing the bat. They've got good catchers from what I've seen, and you don't have a good catcher, you got a lot of wild pitches and balls against the screen.
Let's throw up that 6A bracket one more time here, and I want to ask you, Gary, looking at this, I'm going to go on a limb, quotes. I'm going to go with La Cueva simply because of what they can do, how deep they can go pitching-wise, and basically how deep they can go hitting-wise. Your thoughts on this? Who do you see as a sleeper, and who do you see as a pick that you're going with?
Well, we've already mentioned him extensively. I'd put La Cueva in the championship game, and I'd expect him to see Piedra Vista. Don't think they're a sleeper. We mentioned them. They've got some good pitching. They got Nate Swartz, who's going to be pitching.
Last year they might have been a sleeper. This year I don't think so. No, this year they believe that they should be number 2 probably.
They're like a young La Cueva. They do all the fundamentals. They do all that. And Magaha coaches. He's got a traveling team. He's got kids from all over the area that play on one of those teams. I like PV. From what I've seen, I was hoping one of my Rio Rancho teams could knock off the Panthers. They couldn't, so they definitely deserve to be there. Who else we got on that side of the bracket? I haven't seen Centennial play, but and where's Clovis? Are they on that? Oh, the Clovis down there. Could be La Cueva Clovis in the one semi, and Clovis visited La Cueva last Saturday and got swept. So I don't see anybody beating La Cueva unless there's some injury on the field or something.
And that's the thing about La Cueva. Last week people were talking about that Clovis series in particular. Hey, Clovis has the pitching. This might be the team that comes in and beats La Cueva, and La Cueva says, oh, I don't think so.
I don't think so, yeah. Stay close for a few innings, but then we're going to put you away.
What is it about baseball coaches? I mean, you got Coach Murphy at Rio Rancho. Great guy, great disciplinarian. You know, I'll put him kind of in the same mold, maybe a little bit different, but the same kind of mold in what he gets out of his players of Coach Pineda at La Cueva. What do you see in some of these coaches that you like, and just what do they do to bring out the best in their teams?
Well, I think there's a lot to be said for fundamentals. There's a lot to be said for coaches that tell the kids what they expect. Be here on time. Be ready to play. Be wearing our gear. Don't be wearing a Houston Astros t-shirt. Be wearing Rio Rancho. Don't have your cap on backwards. Love the game. Appreciate the game. And work hard. Rio Rancho's got a kid that was out because he's riding a dirt bike on the day of a game. Starting first baseman, wrecked up his elbow. He's missed he's done for the season. It's like, I'm sure Murphy's seething over something like that. You expect your players to be ready for the games, and riding a dirt bike before the game is not the brightest. Who was a ball player a few years ago that messed himself up? I know we caught that off guard. But I'm sure Gerard Pineda's like that too. Shane Schallenberger expects that. And these guys, plus Jim Johns, who retired a few years ago, they get their kids to that next level. They're playing college ball.
Exactly.
So they do a lot.
Final minute, Gary, what's coming up for you?
I've got 2 softball games to cover today out in the wind. I was at a game last night. I'll be doing the PA work for the Rio Rancho Rams first round series this weekend.
Nice.
Yeah, I'll be looking forward to that. Got El Dorado. We've seen El Dorado play. Of course, they had the misfortune of the player that took his life. So, again, sort of like my favorite time of the year. Then
of course, your show on Saturday.
And then I count down the days till the football season kicks off, Scott.
Well, good seeing you as always. Thanks for coming out.
Thanks for having me.
We'll have to do this again, and I'm sure I'll be on your show one of these days as well.
Nah, we're preempting you for a girl.
Oh, that's probably a good choice. All right. He's Gary Heron. Our thanks to him. Thanks to Old and Iowani and the crew. Until next week, when Ed Nunez joins us again, I'm Scott Coletti. See you next time on a Sports Desk.